Let's head over to Capitol Hill, where Zak Hudak is following the latest on the state of negotiations there. So, Zak, Speaker Nancy Pelosi is planning to hold a vote on the bipartisan infrastructure bill tomorrow. We already know that she doesn't like to, put a bill to a vote unless she knows she's going to win. But we are still seeing pushback from progressive Democrats. What are you hearing from lawmakers about where things stand right now?
And Maria, I spoke yesterday with Pramila Jayapal, the chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, about this exact issue, and I really tried to get her to clarify where they stand, what they actually need to vote for this bill. She said repeatedly that as many as 60 members of her caucus would vote against it, and keep in mind, Democrats really can only afford to lose about 3 votes. So even if a small portion of that 60 she's predicting voted against it, it would be a serious problem for Democrats. But I tried to nail her down on, really what they need, because there's been some talk of trying to make a, quote, ironclad agreement with the Senate to pass the reconciliation spending bill after this, if it's passed. But I asked her about that yesterday, and she said, you know what, we've been making agreements that senators and moderates within the House keep going back on. So any agreement we made, how could we trust it? So really what they want is to see that reconciliation bill pass the Senate first. That seems pretty much impossible right now because it's just not ready. I also spoke with Mike Pocan, the former chair of that caucus, yesterday. He described the 2 bills as being like the movie Twins. He said you need Schwarzenegger, which would be the big reconciliation spending bill, and you need Danny DeVito, which is the surface infrastructure bill. And he said you need both of them to get through, or we're not voting for either.
So, Zach, could any House Republicans vote in favor of the bipartisan infrastructure bill?
Well, Republican leadership is doing everything they can to make sure they don't. Whip Steve Scalise is reaching out to members and pressuring them not to. And my sources there, I've been tracking this pretty closely, say that they're pretty confident there are not going to be a whole lot of Republican defectors. But Josh Gottheimer, who's sort of the de facto leader of the moderates within the House Democratic Caucus, when I've talked to him about this, he said that he feels pretty good that even if a huge portion of progressives vote against it, he could still get it through with support from Republicans. And he knows a lot about moderate Republicans because he's the chairman of the Problem Solvers Caucus, which is sort of the moderate Democrats and moderate Republicans. So there is a possibility, but leadership thinks it's probably not going to be too many.
Okay, so speaking of moderates, we have been talking about moderate Democrats and President Biden's efforts to woo them. They're very concerned about this $3.5 trillion plan. It's just too big for their comfort level. Can you break down what's on the table, where there might be some wiggle room at all?
Yeah, this plan is really the brunt of Joe Biden's domestic policy agenda. And if it doesn't get through now, there are serious questions of whether it ever will get through. It includes parts of his American Families Plan, which would have universal child care for 3- and 4-year-olds. It would have an enhanced child credit, bringing, if you have a child under 6, you would have a child credit of $3,600. Really pretty transformative things for families. Additionally, on healthcare, it would add dental, hearing, and vision to Medicare coverage. And there's a ton of climate provisions in the bill. It would force the U.S. to get to 80% zero emissions on its grid, and its electric grid, in the next few decades. So it really is a massive bill that moderates are worried about the spending sort of up and down on. Democrats say, look, it's not about the price tag. It's about getting all of this done. These are things we all agree on. Moderates are saying, some of these things are a concern, and in particular, even some of the climate things. Some of these people are from districts that these major climate initiatives would, really take a hit at their districts.
And so, real quick, Zach, let's talk about the looming government shutdown, which is what lawmakers are facing when it comes to that deadline. What are you hearing about these deadlines from lawmakers?
The latest of what we're expecting is that the Senate will likely today pass a clean continuing resolution, as we're calling it. That means essentially a bill to fund the government through mid-December but they're going to cut out the part that would suspend the debt limit and try to do that separately. That was why it failed previously in the Senate. I can tell you for sure, Democrats are concerned about this. I mean, they seem to have a pretty likely way to get it through, but if the government does shut down, this reflects poorly on them, to the American people. They control the House, the Senate, the White House, and they feel really a lot of pressure right now to make sure that the government stays open.
All right, Zak Hudak, as always, thank you, my friend. Appreciate it.
Thank you.